Yeah, she just assigns them on the agenda, so when you see it.
Yeah, I missed it.
It'll be a surprise.
That's fine.
Recording in progress.
So you're okay?
I'm fine. I can whip something up. Pretty simple.
For what?
Prayer.
We good to go? Yep. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to West Haven City's Planning Commission meeting for this date, January 25th, 2023. We're going to begin the meeting by having an invocation by Commission Member Reed, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commission Member Reyna.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to meet and ask you to please guide us as we make decisions and discuss important topics in the beautiful city of West Haven. We also thank you for all the moisture that we've been receiving over the last couple of months, and hope that it continues. Please be with the families and the victims of the recent mass shootings in this country, and we pray that you'll guide them and help them as they go through this difficult time. We thank you for our military and our local firefighters and police officers and other emergency people, and we ask that you keep them safe as they go about their daily duties of keeping us safe. And we ask these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will those in attendance please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry I messed up your first and last names. You mixed you two up. Sorry. All right. Action on the minutes from our last meeting, January 11th. Any changes, corrections, additions?
It was a pretty short meeting. I don't see any changes.
Natalie? We good?
From what I saw, yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting from January 11th.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our January 11th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Melinda. I forgot you're online. Anybody opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay, item number 4, report actions taken by City Council. Mary?
There's nothing to report. The city council had a strategic planning meeting last week rather than a regular meeting. So the items that they need to act on from the prior meeting will be looked at next week.
Okay. All right. Item 5, discussion and action to consider a master development agreement for 21 South, a mixed-use project at approximately 2000 South, 1350 West. One of you or all of you want to come up?
Good evening.
What's your
Daniel Stevens, representing Ponderosa Capital Partners.
Thank you.
I had put Jordan's name on the agenda because I didn't know who
That's
was going
okay.
to be here.
He's one of the partners in the project in
Oh, okay.
Ponderosa.
So why don't you give everybody a little overview of what you're doing and
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the time tonight. We really appreciate being here. Ponderosa Capital Partners is made up of a few partners that all live here locally. So we, like many of you, have driven past this location here where the old Stevens Henniger building was today, and have been saddened just by how it's sat there vacant for a long time and it's been dilapidated over time. You know, we have the opportunity here, and what we're proposing is to take down that existing structure, combine it with the 5 acres to the south of it, and do a development that falls in line with the mixed-use zone as you have it written today. And so we'll be coming back through the process with you on the site plan, where it'll get a lot more in the detail on the site plan approval and things like that. Today, we're just in front of you asking for an approval on an MDA that has been worked with the staff.
So let's talk about traffic flow. Have you
Yeah.
done any traffic? Have you looked at the traffic at all yet?
We did. We commissioned a traffic study with WCG, and we have provided that to the city staff, and it came back with no recommended improvements.
I'll largely stay out of the discussion with them. But I have seen that. They gave it to me yesterday. I need to go over it with Ed, but the existing infrastructure supports this level of development and supports this type of use without any additional improvements like he stated.
Okay.
At what point does the fire department get involved in looking at this?
So we, on a conceptual level, once they have the MDA and the concept approved, that's when they'll sit down and get into the details on the site. They have multiple access points in and out of there. Was there 2 or 3? There's 3.
There's 3 heading out to this
Yeah,
west.
so there's 3 access points that head out to the site. If you look at the concept, you can see that it loops around the buildings. So on a conceptual level, they have the site set up for emergency vehicle ingress and egress.
I guess for me, I'm more concerned about the way the road basically dead ends. So there's only one way out on that road in
Right.
terms of if there's a large fire or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's up to the fire marshal. So
that's going to be a concern with any development that happens over there. Chief Reed will be really, really involved in looking at this. The fire department has to sign off on the plans. They're not going to be able to go forward with any level of construction or anything like that until they receive fire approval. Right. I've had an informal conversation with Chief Reed a couple of months ago when they were first starting to come in and ask questions of the city. And he said that he said that road dead ending isn't prohibitive to this site developing. So the biggest issues when it comes to fire is, can the trucks get in and out of the property? So, yeah.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And you probably have fire sprinklers in there anyway.
Yeah.
Because of the size, so.
Yeah, there will be fire sprinklers for sure.
Anybody have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I had another one. Darn it. According to your site plan, it says you're building 284 units. The MDA says 285.
They brought that up to me yesterday. They came in and sat down to go over it with me. That's just a typo on my part.
Okay.
The packets had
that's a
already
good
gone
catch.
out though, so I'm aware that it needs to be 284.
Yeah, the math wasn't adding up for me as I did it. so.
Yeah.
I like to see the detail review there, Commissioner. That's great.
Yeah.
And Amy, you're good with this agreement?
Yeah, I've reviewed it. There was a couple of minor changes that I asked to be changed because their attorney had gone through it, and those minor changes were made, and so I don't have any objections to it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, I do have one other question about this. On the north side of the site plan, it's got 2 buildings at the top, And it's only got one handicap spot over on that side, but in Building D, there's two on that one. Is it possible to put the two on the
Yeah,
the north
it's a
side?
fair comment, and as we dive into the site plan and get more detailed and granular, we can address those types of issues and make sure that, you know, we're ADA compliant.
Okay, great. Well, I see from the numbers that you're already ADA compliant on that, so.
Just,
I just was, for me, it was just a placement thing with the
Okay.
the other spot.
Yes, no, it's a great comment. We can definitely look at that.
Yeah, the words are all upside down.
Okay, thank you.
Flip this, and that fits there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's upside down in our packet, so.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how it fits in the lot.
I thought it was just
Gotcha.
me. I'm like,
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why it jots out like that, and I'm like,
Oh,
that's-
sorry. If you remember a couple, probably 3 or 4 months ago, they came in with the subdivision of the Flying J property. This isn't just the lot that Stevens Henniger sits on.
Right.
This also goes on to the parcel that's just,
So
that's
buildings
south of
A
that.
through D.
So this is 2 parcels.
Yeah, buildings A through D would be the Stevens Henniger parcel, and then the remainder would be the
It's
southern
right
parcel.
side up on the
on
screen.
the screen there, so it's just,
Yeah, on the screen it's right side up. In our packets, it's upside down. So it
Gotcha.
just, yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, so in your packet, north is in the bottom, and south is the top. So.
Oh.
And 1350 west is that little road that's right by the freeway.
Correct.
I guess it's not so little because semis go down to
Yeah.
the neighbor to the north. So
Yeah, and there will be some widening that happens on the Flying J piece of 1350s.
yeah, as far as concept goes, this is pretty detailed. So Melinda, was that you?
Yeah, I'm wondering so will the Peterbilt building still, or Kenworth, will that building still be there? Does that stay?
Yeah, I think so. They're just doing the Stephen Henniger's one, and
And north of that?
and then they're doing the property to the south of it.
Yeah. Melinda, this doesn't go anywhere, to any of the parcels north of Stevens Henniger. This is that parcel and the parcel between Stevens Henniger and Flying J.
Got it. I think I was looking at the map upside down also.
Yeah,
You're not the
So
only one.
sorry. Sorry about that.
that threw everybody for a loop. Now we're all oriented.
yeah, maybe at our next step, we'll have an overlay. Yeah, because I was trying to make sense of those little jogs where it was kind of cut in.
Yeah, these two together on the screen make it a lot easier to. Yeah, you're seeing the same thing we are. So yeah, they fit together better.
I think
Any other
the-
questions?
I think the staff report was very detailed and
Yeah, very detailed.
I saw the housing report that Sherry put on there, staff put on there, that it fit with that. Do we know how much that they'll rent for, or do you have any idea yet? Or are you just gonna wait till building costs come in?
Are you directing that at me, the applicant?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, right now, I mean, we've done market studies, but, you know, as time goes on, things change. So we're not quite exactly sure where those will be yet.
I can give a sort of guesstimate on it because I have looked at what other projects in the city are renting for. And if this is, I mean, like I said, anything, Weber County has a high enough AMI that anything under $1,800 a month would be considered affordable housing and would satisfy that element. you know, obviously, like you said, they've got to dig into it a little bit more. But I anticipate that if their rent levels come in similar to what other projects in the city are at right now, even factoring in rent increases that may happen market wide between now and when they're ready to take occupancy, I would imagine that a significant number of the apartments will still qualify with the state's metric of what counts as affordable housing.
Yeah, it will be very similar to what you see at Altair
Yeah.
or 11 West. Yeah.
So I think there will be some of them that will go towards that. What the exact number is, I don't know. But I think we'll be able, this project will support the city's mandate the state's mandate for the city to provide affordable housing. And it should be noted that when we talk about that, affordable housing does not equal low income or subsidized housing.
Right.
So I just wanted, and I'm sure most everybody understands that, but I just wanted to clarify that too, that something qualifying as an affordable housing project doesn't mean it's subsidized. It doesn't mean it's extremely low income.
Okay, any other?
Thank you, Sherry.
You bet.
Any other questions? I'm ready for a motion if you guys are.
I motion that we forward this MDA and concept plan to the City Council for their approval based on the findings and conclusions outlined in the staff report dated January 19th, 2023.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to the City Council. With that motion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hear myself in stereo. Okay, you're on to City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, discussion to consider an ordinance amending West Haven zoning code, parking and loading space, vehicle traffic and access regulations. And Ed's online, I see.
Ed, do you want to lead this discussion?
Did you want to talk about, excuse me, do you want to talk about the general parking standards first, or you just want me to get into the design standards?
We want to know
talked
where
a little-
section X
Oh,
is.
sorry. We talked a little bit about the general standards during the work session. So,
Okay.
I mean, if you have more questions if they have more questions about that, we can, or you can just get into the design standards, the drive-through, the pickup drop-off stuff.
Okay, I will focus on that. So as the members of the commission know that drive-throughs are becoming an even more common application that we're seeing. And generally, most cities don't have any clear design standards, and they basically are designed to function as the site engineer decides they should be. But there's a lot of, as you know, majorly traffic concerns, but there's ancillary concerns also that we want to make sure that are addressed every time we get an application that shows us a drive-through. So basically all this is doing is setting some physical parameters in terms of location of drive aisles, the width of the drive aisles, drive aisle radius, requiring vehicle path analysis so we know that larger passenger vehicles can safely and easily move around these turns, because we've had instances where that's been challenging. And also, in the next most important issue with that is providing enough stacking or queuing, not only from the menu board back, but also making sure there's sufficient distance between the service window and the menu board as well. Make sure that's spread out far enough so we don't have cars that get delayed there, causing further stacking in the rear.
Could we have a Chick-fil-A section in this? So if there's a Chick-fil-A built, that they have to have more spaces?
Yes, we can. As part of this, I did look into some of the corporate sites and their standards, and generally they're consistent with what we're showing here. Some of them are actually more conservative. So we don't have an issue with more conservative. We just have to set the minimum. And if based on the traffic analysis or some other factors, we can certainly make these even more conservative in individual cases as needed. And, you know, we all focus on the drive-throughs for restaurants, but we also have, you know, consideration of things like other retail services, ATMs, car washes, pharmacies. All these are now having drive-through aisles. So we have to have standards for that. And mostly those are free entry. So we're not so concerned about aisle widths and those kind of things. It's to make sure that there's sufficient stacking and not interfering with the safe circulation of general traffic or pedestrian traffic around these buildings. The other issues, like it's an ancillary that we see come up, and this has been on not only on drive-throughs, but in general, a lot of our restaurant uses, trying to make sure that they're compliant with solid waste management practices, particularly with regard to stormwater management. And we're going to actually, and some of our applicants have already started doing this as part of our stormwater management. We like to see a cleanup schedule, a litter cleanup schedule, so we know that we're not going to wind up having debris getting into our catch basins. And just making sure the site is generally clean, and make sure also dumpsters that they're closing, that they have covers, that they're going to be sized sufficiently so we don't get overflow. Those are considerations we make on every site plan, but particularly on food-based ones, it becomes a little more important. Noise and lighting are also a concern, particularly if you're near a residential zone. So, you know, we have our conditions under the noise ordinance and light ordinance, and this just makes sure that we consider that the speaker boxes are going to be compliant, so you don't have to hear somebody ordering their hamburger 3 blocks away. And the last thing is a buffer. I know there's been a lot of talk about buffering, and basically this is going to require separation if there's a residential zone or whatever the commission deems or Sherry deems is appropriate for that particular use, to make sure that we minimize the impact to the surrounding areas.
So we can make them build a masonry wall?
We can.
Okay.
Yep.
Ed, this is Matt. Do you have any stipulation for double drive-throughs?
Yes, it's basically I don't think we're permitted to prohibit them. It's just, again, to make sure that the design is going to be able to safely move the cars through. So they'll be subject to the same stacking requirements as if it was a single lane.
What about in the instances where you have multiple businesses? So you have 2 different businesses in the same fourplex commercial area, and there's 2 of those businesses will have their drive-through on each side of the building.
Correct.
How are we going to regulate that for traffic?
They're generally regulated independently, but when you look at if there's cross traffic or a need for shared exits or things like that, is something that we generally would discourage and really try to treat them as independent operations, so they don't necessarily have an impact on each other.
Okay.
And you reference a section X in there.
Yeah, that's because I didn't know how this was going to be codified. So we just have to fill in some of those other sections from the general ordinances.
Oh, okay. All right, we were all confused by that, so
Oh,
thank you.
I apologize.
No, it's
I
fine.
didn't have the references for some of the other ordinances, and I tried to make it, at least for those requirements, be specific on what we want for drive-throughs, but then also say whatever else is required under, say, the separate noise ordinance or the lighting ordinance, or buffering, that they're compliant with the rest of the code, not necessarily what's only stated here. So that's what that comes from.
In the in the public hearing draft, we'll have all that corrected and have those section numbers put in.
Any more questions on the drive-through, or I can move on to drop off and pickup?
Yeah, I think you can move on.
Okay. So another issue that's been raised by members of the council and the public, and I think you've probably seen it yourself. There are certain uses now, particularly, you know, schools come to mind mostly, that require periodic pickup and drop off a significant number of vehicles in a short amount of time. And the desire there obviously is not to interfere with the free flow of traffic that's passing that site. And generally, we have not required, we didn't have a formal requirement for a dedicated drop-off lane. And what we've decided is for new cases, it's going to be incumbent upon the property owner to dedicate additional right-of-way to the city. And the reason that would be is that we would require a driving, a cut-in like you see sometimes for buses. And if you think about it, a drop-off lane operates very similarly to a drive-through lane, except instead of, picking up your lunch, you're dropping off your kid or something. And there's stacking requirements. And again, the key there is to maintain safe through traffic and obviously safety for pedestrians as well. And I'm
So
sorry.
how do we, sorry, Ed.
I'm sorry.
So how do we, like I've noticed like some of these buildings have gotten built in the city, they don't really know who their tenants are gonna be, and then they end up being like a dance studio or something. And so you have a lot of pick up and drop off with those, but when it comes through for site plan, we don't know that's what's gonna be there. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah. I can't speak to that specifically. I know where I'm originally from New Jersey, and what was required there was anytime there was a change of use, the applicant had to come back to the planning board to ensure the board that the overall parking requirements are still being met, even if the individual uses change. I don't think that's something that's the general practice here. I think it'll be more meaningful if we know there's a school or a daycare center or a senior center or something like that, where it's going to be pretty clear that you're going to need a drop off. Some of the retail uses, it is a little more challenging, but a lot of times they also have enough room on the site itself, off within the private property itself, so we don't have to impact the right of way anyway. But it's a good point, and hopefully it's not something that's going to come up, but maybe we just add just put a little more wording in there to ensure that the commission has some discretion in some of these cases.
Ed, I actually have included a flex space on there.
Yeah.
If they don't have a predetermined end user, there's a fixed number, then it's per X number of square feet. So for example, this building that's down the street that has Los Heribertos, the pizza place, they have something like 6,000 square feet in that building, I think. So if we had used this, and I don't know how many spaces are over there now, I should look at that, but they would be required to put in 30 plus parking spaces. So yeah.
Is that a lot for that side of a business?
If you're gonna have something like dance studios or places where kids get dropped off, that's not a lot, but
I mean, for like that.
oh, for that use,
that
I mean,
little
30.
Mexican restaurant.
I'm trying to think of what's there. It really is kind of hard to predict because you don't know what kind of use you're gonna have there.
Yeah. I mean, a sit-down restaurant would need more.
Yeah, I
Space.
mean, where these are fast casual and there's a drive-through, I mean, I think that's probably plenty.
Well, there's not a lot of places to sit down inside that restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And West Side
It's not
Pizza
overly
doesn't have
burdensome either.
no, yeah.
Mexican place or the pizza place, there's not a lot.
But there's one empty spot there, right?
Yeah, the one drive-through side
And
is
it's still
empty.
empty.
Yeah. But that is a pretty common ratio, is 5 or 6 per thousand for retail. So
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to strike a good balance, not overburden small business, but have
Yeah.
adequate, so that's why I asked.
So if anyone has any other specific questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I think I covered all the bullet points that are in the proposed ordinance change.
Yeah, this is pretty thorough.
And just to clarify, this is for new builds, not existing, correct?
Correct. But if somebody comes in and wants to modify a building to add a drive-through, it would be applicable.
I think Ed has a pretty good point that when there is a change of use before their business license is issued, we need to make sure that there is sufficient parking. So, because if it goes from an office building that's the same 4 people working in it all day, every day, to something where all of a sudden they've got a high level of turnover. So,
Well, these big gym kind of things are popular, right? And
yeah.
depending on what they do, you know, if it's a dance thing where they're doing dance classes, you know, for little kids, they're gonna have a lot of flow. If they're doing adult, you know, games, probably a lot less flow. You know what I mean? It's gonna change, and they're gonna park and stay, right? The adults, but the kids are gonna get dropped off and picked up. So then it changes the flow. I'm just thinking about the one on 2550 next to Tractor Supply there. There's times when that's just crazy now.
Yeah, I work there, actually.
And I don't think it would be difficult to write into city code something about change of use of a building. So because somebody can't come in and start their business without going through Sharice for a business license. And that's something that we can and should review, because Ed brings up a really good point with that.
Yeah, I just worry about safety mostly in that scenario. So
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah. There are 35 spaces at the Alibertos.
excellent.
35?
I counted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to clean this up and make these changes, and then we'll have a public hearing?
A public hearing in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Nope, a public hearing in 4 weeks.
Will you
'cause
look
I
into
don't-
the high school thing just in case that ever?
We'll have a public hearing at the second meeting in February, because I would have to put it out tomorrow. And I
Okay.
need to make some phone calls on a couple things and write in some language about change of use.
Have Alica call Fremont and see how many parking spaces they have and how many they wish
Yeah.
they had.
It's unlikely we'll have another public high school in the city.
It's
but-
unlikely.
But it could be a private. I mean, these private high schools,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
pop up some places.
yeah, that's
And
true.
then you'd base the parking spots on population of the high school or projected? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
On the education one, it didn't seem to be very generous.
Okay.
It was one. for
Yeah,
every
and that's
5
why it
students.
says education, because that wraps in public and private. Like
Right.
it wraps in charter schools, it wraps in parochial schools.
Okay.
My question is on a few of these, I guess mostly like the drop-off pickup lanes, it has a lot of at the discretion of language in there, or at least it appears to.
Ed?
Yeah, and again, that's also goes back to what the chairman was saying, is that we have to account for some situations which we're not anticipating may necessarily need a drop off. So during concept review, when we have our DRC, if based on some particular use that comes in and this becomes applicable, we believe that the commission and Sherry should have that kind of discretion to say, we think that these standards should apply to this particular site plan because of ABC, based on use, traffic, things like that.
Okay. We just,
And-
it won't put us into
generally-
any sort of sticky situations with
Appeals.
appeals
Sorry,
or
can you
anything
say
like
that
that.
again?
It won't put us into any like weird situations with appeals or anything like that. With having that kind of malleable language in there, I guess. I like that it gives us flexibility, but I guess my concern is,
We don't want to be burned by it.
yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's good to have somebody that can have the flexibility to. We don't really get too many weird situations like that. I mean, I think the uses that we have in here We're gonna cover 99.9% of situations, and then we just have to have cases where Ed and I can look at it. But I don't
And
anticipate.
I'm sorry. No, and I think from my perspective, the biggest concern is if they want to do the drop off within the right of way. And that's where I become concerned that we're not going to interfere with our free flow of traffic. If there's in say a strip mall, if there's a dance studio or karate, whatever, we have less ability to require a standard pickup drop off in those situations. And I think those are probably more likely to happen. And in that case, I think having adequate parking is going to be more important at that point.
Okay, sounds good.
So yeah, this will be at the second meeting in February for a public hearing. And if there's questions or concerns you guys have between now and then, you're welcome to send them to me, just so I can look them up and be able to have answers to them, get you more information, do whatever between now and then.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. So. All right, any other thoughts on that? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll move to item 7. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.